And this experience is so fast paced. You know, we have like 2 days to write the screenplay, we shoot for 2 days, and then we edit for 3 days. And it really like showed to me like you just gotta go and you gotta do the thing, like write the screenplay, shoot the shot, and put it all together. And the fact that it's done is better than the fact that it's perfect.
Welcome to Bitch Talk. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm co-host Ange, aka Captain Party.
And for more than 11 years, the show has celebrated underrepresented voices in pop culture and beyond.
But not in the snore kind of way, which is why our listeners and followers have graciously voted us Best of the Bay, Best Podcast on 48 Hills for 3 years in a row. Three-peat, bitches.
If you like what you hear, follow us on Instagram and check out our website, Bitch Talk Podcast, and rate us wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're begging you to judge us. When does that ever happen? Oh, you're not going to say anything?
Oh, what'd I say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, on that note, on with the show. Clink.
Hey, Bitch Talkers. This is a special on-location episode. We are at USF campus in San Francisco, and we were asked to speak with folks that are associated with the SFFilm Youth Filmmakers Camp. And it was a really special day. Ange and I felt very inspired and actually want to be a kid again.
This is our first PG on location. I feel like every time we're going on location, we're going to a bar or something. But look at us. We're at college, Mom and Dad. Anyways,
we're at a prestigious university.
Yes, and it was so much fun. So you're going to hear first from Keith, who's the director of education, and Soph, who is the education manager. And then you're going to hear from 2 students in the camp, Sky and Aisha, who are just incredible. And finally, you're going to hear from Jessica Jones, who is a professional editor / mentor from the day. Thank you, Jessica. I definitely was taking notes during your presentation. So we learned, we had fun, and the kids are incredible. So thank you, SFFilm, for having us.
Hi, I'm Keith Swofer. I'm the Director of Education at SFFilm, which means I oversee all of our education programs, including camp, youth residency, festival programming, family programming, etc.
Hi, I'm Soph Schultz-Rocha. I'm the Education Manager at SFFilm. I just assist with making sure all our programs run smoothly, but my main focus is Youth Filmhouse Residency, Camp, and Youth Works. Yeah.
I want to set this up and have Keith really talk about big picture and what SFFilm and education does and when it started.
Yeah, well,
I know which could be a 10-minute conversation,
sure.
but
I'll keep it to the bullet points.
Yeah.
SFFilm has been around for almost 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have our 70th anniversary of the International Film Festival in 2 years, and that makes us the oldest film festival in the Americas. We also, starting probably about 25 years ago, a little longer, is when we became more of a year-round organization where we spread out outside of just the festival, where we have our membership, we have other festivals that we did back then and we do now. And our education program falls into that in that we started that 34 years ago. It was started by a man named Bob Don, who was a retired SFUSD history teacher, and he was also a volunteer for the festival, and he volunteered a lot. I didn't actually get the chance to meet him, but so he was a volunteer for the festival. He proposed it to the programmers then at the time. Hey, would you consider doing something for kids? Like, I have all these connections to schools, and I think what you do would be really useful for teachers. So I think he came on just as a volunteer, started up the program. He ran it for a number of years, about 5 or 10 years, and I came in about 21 years ago. And when I came in, I started off as a volunteer intern. I worked for the festival, and then we got a grant right at that opportune time for me, and it became a year-round program. So it fits into the full picture in that we, as an organization, are trying to create, a thriving film culture in the Bay Area. So that's for our audiences, our cinephiles, people who are just experiencing us for the first time. Also the filmmakers who are coming through, who are either Bay Area filmmakers, but also filmmakers from around the world and the country who are looking for passionate audiences. And then our part, where we're getting them right from the start, getting them excited about film, seeing how they can use film in their daily lives as kids, experiencing the world, being curious about the world. And then for teachers, it's a way for them. If you just think of when you were growing up, the field trips you might have taken, arts field trips, they were a big part of my experience growing up. Like those are the things that I maybe remember more than my actual school, is the things that I went out and did, like going to see the symphony, going to see plays or the museums, things like that. So we're providing a resource for educators to think about film as a tool, because it's not just about filmmaking. It's about using film to connect to everything from history to foreign languages to math and science, that kind of thing. So that fits into the picture of the whole organization, because we're basically creating a full pipeline, from the start. Some of those kids hopefully will become filmmakers, but the majority of them hopefully will be lifelong arts appreciators, who can discover things themselves after they've had their experience with us. And then, which I didn't mention in that sort of grouping of everything that we do, is our artist development, where we're actually supporting filmmakers in their process, be it pre-production, post-production. And all of those different elements, our public programming, where our programmers are putting together excellent slates of films for the festival, or the artist development team who are supporting those filmmakers whose films might end up in the festival. All those areas affect the education program, because we work with all of those different departments where we're bringing in those filmmakers, we're showcasing those films, we're connecting the students who are interested in filmmaking to those filmmakers. So it's a nice big cycle.
Doing the most.
Yeah, and it's for an organization like SFFilm that just is such a broad reach. You're already creating your future filmmaking clientele, right, with these youth programs. So it's really exciting for us to be here today to witness it. And so if you want to chime in and talk about how you became part of SFFilm and really crafted this youth program.
Yeah, of course. So I started at SFFilm a bit over 3 years ago in the education department, really focusing on school visits during the festival. So I think I did nearly 20 school visits, and it was really great. I was able to bring filmmakers who were in town because their films were in the film festival, and I got to bring them to different classrooms across the Bay Area. And then I continued on as actually the camp instructor for a summer. And I just continued on into a year-round position as the education manager, where I got to and have been able to really expand our Youth Film House residency program and assist with everything we do year-round with education.
Yeah, we're a small department. So started during the festival when we bring a lot of contract employees onto the organization and we grow, and they did such a great job. And I was like, I just hope I have other opportunities to incorporate SOF into our program. So we had a space in our camp that right after the festival, so they were able to join us then. And then luckily I had a space for a year-round position right after that. So SOF started in little positions, but then became a full part of the program soon after that.
Wow, timing. Can you talk about putting together the camps and also just the syllabus and hiring of the instructors? Because I know Chris is one of the instructors. And who's the other instructor?
Tajiana.
They have a way with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about all of it?
Yeah, of course. So when I did camp, I believe that was our first time, like after COVID, coming back to in-person camp. I think we had tried a virtual, but before that, we hadn't done a camp since 2019.
Yeah, we had a break for COVID. The year after, we did an online version, which a lot of our programs were online. And while it wasn't perfect, it was a way for us to, kids really needed it. So we did whatever we could. So we did that, yeah. And then you came back on. It was the first one in person.
I think that was a really great opportunity to really delve into our curriculum, our syllabus, kind of grow it into something that can be a little bit more consistent, but also building from the information and like model and routine that we've already been having for all these years. This is our 15th year at camp, which is really exciting. So the curriculum is a really awesome hands-on learning experience for students. they are at camp for 2 weeks and they make a short film in 2 weeks, which I think for any filmmaker, that's like nearly...
It's pretty crazy.
It's a lot. So it's a bunch of 14 to 18-year-olds, and they're working together from, development, pre-production, and they film for a couple days, and then they go into post-production, and then they even learn about programming, and they screen their film to their family, friends, and a bunch of SFFilm staff, and it's really fun. They get the full, experience. They get to participate in a Q&A as if they were, screening their film at a festival. And then we also, throughout camp, have a bunch of filmmaker visits. Guest speakers come and talk. So like you spoke to Jessica. Today is a great example. For this summer, we've also had Kyle Casey Chu, who's really great.
Yes.
Yeah, so we work with our artist development department to find filmmakers who would be a really good fit to come speak to the students. Some of them do a little bit more hands-on workshops. We've also had Rob Fattal, and we've had Sahand, Nicole,
Jim Lebrecht. That was a year or two ago.
We've had other guests in the past have been
Alice
Wu, Bret Parker. This year we had Trevor Jimenez come back.
From Pixar.
When we think of our instructors, we kind of look for the intersection of someone who has filmmaking experience, of course, is really passionate about filmmaking. Maybe they're a filmmaker themselves, and also has that education background, so has experience teaching high schoolers. So I think it's one thing to, be a filmmaker and all these things and these technical skills, but to be able to engage young students.
And as you saw from watching them in action, they just really have a way of engaging the kids and it's a lot of work, and the kids are really passionate about what they're doing, but they're also teenagers, and it's a summer camp, and there's a lot of energy, right? And Soph had this ability too, just to really be a great mentor, know when they needed breaks, know when they need a little bit of extra love on what they're doing, but just being there to support them. And both Chris and Taji, you can really see the passion they have for working with kids. And some filmmakers don't have that. They're great for coming in for like an hour and having that experience and that expertise, but to put them with kids for 2 weeks, maybe too much to ask for them. So we're lucky that we found such great instructors who have both sides of what we need.
Since you've done a lot of hands-on work with the youth, Soph, I'm curious to know what kind of stories they're interested in telling. Do you notice a difference pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, and just where their heads are at because they consume media and film so differently now?
Yeah, I think Keith will have to answer the question about pre versus post-pandemic, but I was thinking of the types of stories that students are telling now. Like I mentioned, we have a YouthWorks program, which is a shorts category that's at our festival every year. And so we get nearly 400 submissions, short films by students, 18 and under from all over the world. So I get to see a lot of really amazing short films by teenagers and by young people. I think there's always so many stories of, coming of age, reconciling and understanding different parts of who you are and your community, your family, I think has been an ongoing trend. And then for our campers, they do love a little psychological thriller, horror. I think they really like a genre film. I think it's really fun for them to kind of also mix dark comedy. And I didn't mention it before, but our campers are also they act in their own films too. So it's cool to see that they're writing the script and also acting in it.
I've been seeing those types of films for over 20 years now, and you have waves of interest. You can tell a lot of the films, teachers have themes that they want to, and the kids are doing that. I would say when I first was starting, it felt more like genre stuff, they would say do a comedy or do something like that, or they were replicating their favorite films. A lot of that, which is a great way, to learn, and if you have someone you idolize, to try to take pieces of that and put it into your own work. I would say since the pandemic, maybe a little before, I think it has gotten a lot more personal. I think maybe teachers are recognizing the stress that kids are dealing with in their daily lives, right? And allowing them to explore that in their storytelling. So it's everything from whatever's happening in the moment. It might be like Black Lives Matters. I think we got some excellent documentaries about that, things that are happening in their community, but also like really personal, where I think kids are opening up about things like mental health. We had a young filmmaker we've had, you remind me his name?
Patrick Chang.
Who was starting at Stanford this fall, but we had him in the last festival and the festival before that. But both of his films tackled mental health issues, and he hadn't done films before that. Wasn't that like his first foray? Really personal. And the things he got out of his subjects as he was interviewing his fellow classmates. But I don't think they're as afraid to dive into harder subjects now. And I also think they have a better like vocabulary for it. You know, as you were saying, the genres that the kids are exploring, like psychological thrillers and things like that. I think what they were exploring maybe 15 years ago were a little bit more straightforward. And they have a curiosity about a much deeper well of films. You know, we had one student when one of the icebreakers was like, you know, name your favorite film, that kind of thing. And this is one thing I love about camp is that kids find their people, their group. You know, some of these students are at schools where they have a film program. Some, they don't have a film program at all, and they might feel isolated. So they asked what favorite film, and then he said Chungking Express, Wong Kar-wai. And you know, if he would have like said that at a school where he wouldn't have anyone to talk to. So then when we had Casey came in, Casey mentioned that Wong Kar-wai was one of their favorite filmmakers, and the student just like lit up. And afterwards they're like, tell me, what's your favorite Wong Kar-wai film? And they just like talking about it. So the fact that kids are accessing these type of films, I think there's, like you said, they can access it anywhere, right? When I was growing up, to see a Wong Kar-wai film, I'd have to like go downtown to an art house theater. It was maybe one theater, and no one would go with me. And now you could find it on YouTube. You could find it wherever you want. So that opens up their ability to tell stories, right? Because they have much more to pull from.
We didn't talk about the partnership with SFUSD. Did you want to touch on that really quickly?
I was talking about our scholarships. So if, you know, you worked on that. We do work with the public schools for all of our programs, SFUSD, OUSD, outside, go down to San Jose, up to Sacramento even. But we had a really nice partnership for camp this summer. So if you can elaborate on it.
Yeah, so through SFUSD's visual arts program this summer, we were able to be one of their nonprofit organization partners, where they were able to support with some SFUSD students to get a full scholarship to attend camp, which is really exciting to be able to have that partnership and to continue to engage students who are like live in San Francisco, go to school here, and for them to be able to access something that they might not be able to access. Like, we try our best for camp to have professional equipment that maybe a public school doesn't have access to, definitely not a regular, student has access to. So for them to be able to get that hands-on experience with these professional grade equipment and to speak with professional filmmakers, I think is a really great opportunity.
Yeah, we love working with SFUSD. They're our core group of, I guess, teachers, our audience for our year-round programs. When I first started, we had a ticket price for the festival, and it was minimal, but we could tell it was hard for some teachers to come in, and we knew that teachers were paying out of their own pockets to bring kids. So at a certain point, we got sponsorship where we were able to eliminate the ticket cost. So we have public, we have private, we have homeschool as our audience, but public school students are our core, where we really lean into to make sure that they have the most access possible. So that having that extra funding allowed for us to have more scholarships. Over the last 5 years, we've aimed to have about half of our tuition. We have tuition, but then we have at least half of the students we try to get in for scholarship for the camp.
Yeah, I just kind of want to wrap on funding for the arts, funding for broadcasting is, being lost. So can you talk about how you're maneuvering this time and why programs like SF Film and everything you do is so important within the greater community.
Yeah, we're all taking a hit. Our organization has a lot of different avenues for funding. So luckily, being an established organization that's been around for almost 70 years, we have private funding, we have corporate, but then we do get government grants as well. And in fact, Soph and I had a grant from Cal Humanities this last year to work with humanities subjects in middle school and SFUSD public school. And it started last year, went into the beginning of this year, both of our fests, and the second half of it got canceled. They emailed us, said, we're so sorry, ours funding got canceled. But somehow they found it. They actually got back to us and we were able to save it. So we had funding for doc stories in the fall and then for the festival in the spring. And we were going to go through with what we were planning anyways. We had other ways to do it, but they did get back to us and say, we can still help you out with this. And in turn, we tried to give them as much reporting. When you're working with something like Cal Humanities, it's important to show the impact that they're having. So when they are applying for these government grants, they can see the impact on a larger scale. It's not just them. They're touching so many different organizations. So we've heard stories like that. There's smaller orgs, that we've known and loved for a long time who are really struggling now. The way we support filmmakers, I've seen some drop off in some of the larger scale grants, but overall, like I said, we have lots of different avenues. Even our public programming, we have a loyal audience who are coming out to see films. And while ticket cost is not the main way that we fund the whole organization, it's good that we have those loyal members who support us. And then for our education program, we're kind of scrappy. We get away with a lot with a little. But we do have support for our camp, being here at USF. Do you know Danny Plotnick? Danny Plotnick, filmmaker in the Bay Area who's been around for a very long time. He has a wonderful book about 16 millimeter. He's very about tactile, using film. But he's a professor here, and I've known him for a long time. He used to teach at a high school where we used to have his students come, and he knew that we were over here for the last couple of years, but we hadn't partnered directly with the media department. So we've collaborated, and that has allowed us to use this space, because before we were just using their classroom space. He also was able to make it a reasonable deal, right? So we're partnering, we're doing something to benefit his program. He's doing something to benefit our program. We have other relationships like that. We work very closely with SFMOMA. SFMOMA has been a space that SFFilm has used for a long time. We curated it and did public programming with them for their, public-facing things. That went away, but in the process of that, I got a very good relationship with their education team. So we have continued to use that as one of our primary venues. Again, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. SFMOMA doesn't use their theater that much for their education programs. They're known more for bringing kids into the gallery spaces, but they really wanted to utilize the space. We had formed such a great relationship that we partnered together, and when kids go there, they have a full day. They come in, they experience film. We connect it to art pieces that are in the galleries, so they can have a full art day at SFMOMA. But that relationship is a way that we survive, right? If we were only able to do screenings at theaters and could only do theater rentals, which we still do, and we love to do because we want to point out those places like the Roxy and the Vogue, those single screen theaters, which kids usually don't know about. They know about an AMC, but they don't know about a single screen theater. But that has a lot of costs that are associated with it. You want to keep those places alive, so we throw money towards them and rent from them so we can really bring attention to them, but we can't do that solely. So to have those partnerships with a place like here, USF, a place like SFMOMA, it allows us to survive when other funding is pulled away.
Okay, before we wrap, we keep saying this. Can you can either one of you or both of you maybe tell us what's the best feedback you've had from a camper or from their parents about this experience, or something that made an impact?
There's so many. It's really hard to choose.
It's okay, a couple of them if you want, or one that sticks out right now.
I'm going to start with kind of maybe a little more silly one.
Please.
A few years ago, we had the filmmaker Jim Capobianco
Jim Camp.
come to camp, and he worked at Pixar, Disney for a really long time.
Jim was a screenwriter on The Lion King, also and then he came over to Pixar, Ratatouille.
Wait, and so the students didn't really know who he was. He came to talk about character development, and then he started telling the students the story of Ratatouille and how it was his idea for the film, and like why he really had to push it. And there was a lot of pushback actually about, why are you making this film? And one student who was pretty quiet, but his face completely lit up during this presentation. He was like on the edge of his seat, and afterwards he's like, that's my favorite movie. Like, I can't wait to tell my mom that I got to meet him. And he got like a photo with him, and I don't know, moments like that. We get a lot of feedback of, it's just students get to see films that really resonate with them and meet the filmmakers. And I think that's a really special, unique thing that we do. And then maybe a more like well-rounded one is we have a lot of families who come, year after year after year to our programs. There's one homeschool family that there's like 4 siblings, and they've continued to come over the years. And one student, he attended camp a few years, and then he was in our first or second class of our Youth Film House residency program, which is like our newest program. And now he's at film school, and their daughter is an incredible like voice actress, and invited us.
She was in Inside Out too.
Yeah, she invited us to the friends and family screening of Inside Out. So we continue to get feedback from them, but I think it's just through seeing young people continue to grow up and to go off to college, and like they come back and visit. It's just really powerful to see like the impact that we're doing in their lives.
Yeah, when you have a homeschool family like that, we have a lot of ability to connect with them. When you have a student who comes with their class, you might not necessarily hear how it impacted them, but hopefully it comes back to us. And sometimes we do hear those things, but yeah, a family like that, we've gotten to see them grow and their interest, and they're so grateful, and they tell us how some of those little moments have impacted what they are doing. When we went to Pixar for our summer camp, and someone like spotted her and said, "Oh, hey, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "What's going on with that?" And her brother said, "Well, we can't tell you, Keith." And I've known her for like 8 or 9 years, and they said, "We'll tell you soon." So I immediately was like, I think she was doing something. And then when the press release came out, they sent us this big thank you email and said, and then they invited us to the premiere to come and check it out too. It was very sweet. For me, I have so many. It's been 20 years. I get a lot of those special moments every time. And, you can have a theater of 1,000 kids, and one kid comes up and talks to the filmmaker afterwards and has that interaction, and you witness that. Mm-hmm. And that's really where you've made an impact. Mm-hmm. Hopefully the majority of those kids had a good time and learned something and took it off to whatever their passion is. It might not be filmmaking. It might be something completely different, but as long as you've inspired them to do that. One thing, I'll go like way back in my catalog of experiences, and then maybe do one more recent, but we did a film called Amandla. Do you remember Amandla from it's like 20 years old. It's Amandla, a Revolution in 4-Part Harmony, I think is the full title, and it's basically about South African music and how it was used for a voice of protest. And one of the main singers in the film, his name is Vusi Malasela. Beautiful, beautiful voice. And I just watched the film, and I saw that he was coming through. He was playing at Cal. He had a performance there, so I just reached out to his manager, and I took him to Berkeley High School. And he was just the most lovely. He played at Nelson Mandela's inauguration. He had been imprisoned as well, just like Nelson Mandela. So he just had these amazing stories, and it was pretty powerful stuff. And the kids were just like enraptured and completely silent. I didn't even know like if it was connecting with them. And I've done this a few times with musicians where we had Marquetta and Glenn from Once, and both this and that experience, the managers are like, well, they're not going to play any music. They're just going to come. And once you get them into the room, so Vusi played like 3 or 4 songs, just these powerful anthems from the film. And afterwards, the kids just like came up and they were like in tears. They wanted to come and hug him. There was just that like connection that they had just from this small experience, like a half an hour, 40-minute Q&A, but it opened up so much for them. And you don't always get that level of emotion, but when it does happen at that big a scale, it's pretty overwhelming,
Yes.
to see them feeling that, kids can be pretty guarded too, right? So when they open up like that, I think it's a pretty special experience for the guests too, because oftentimes they're going through the tours and at festivals and they have passionate audiences that they're interacting with, but they get a lot of the same type of experience. And when you get thrown into a room with 1,000 kids or whatever and have that experience for them, I think it's just as powerful for them as it is for us. And I guess I'll finish with like a more recent one. I think you guys might have interviewed him. Have you interviewed Sean Wong for Dee Dee?
Dee Dee. I was thinking about
Yes.
Dee Dee this whole time. Yes.
So Sean has we've had some of these stories where Filmmaker has had, Joe Talbot, who I first met when he was in high school, and his film was in the youth category. And then we've, gone on to what Joe's success now. But with Sean's short film, Nay Nay and Wei Pao, was in our Doc Stories program. And we screened it for our Schools of Doc Stories program in a shorts program. And it was, it's a quirky film. It's really lovely, but it's not something that kids are probably used to seeing. Like, you don't even know if it's a documentary right from the start. But we had a student who we have an essay contest for our festivals, and we had a student who wrote about the experience because they had just lost their grandfather. And they're Chinese American, and there was a very close relationship. And they used the money from the essay contest to take the whole family out for dim sum, like really special dim sum. So I sent it to Sean, because oftentimes we'll have this type of feedback. We get feedback sometimes, but a lot of times we're getting feedback for the filmmakers, and we send it to them and show the impact that they had as a thank you for what they've done. So we sent it to Sean and his team, and it really meant a lot to him. And then we started supporting Dee Dee. He reached out to us because he knew we worked with students, and he was looking for kids for his casting. So I sent it out to a lot of the schools that we work with, some like a after-school theater program. One of the students who was in the skating group, his little band of guys that he hung out with, was from School of the Arts. And I had sent it to School of Arts. I don't know if it was through that connection, but I'm hoping that it was through that. And then in the full circle, then Sean screened Dee Dee for us at the festival, but as part of Schools at the festival too. And I just remember, like, when he came in, he was watching it. I think it was the first time he'd screened it for like such a large group of kids, but just like sitting off to the side and like experiencing it for, the audience that he really wanted it to be for. And when he came up on stage, sometimes it can be stuffy with microphones. He just like immediately plopped down on the floor and just like sat like right close up to the kids. And it was a really powerful experience. There was one comment from a School of the Arts student who came as an audience member, and they just said, their teacher has this phrase that they said, I won't be able to remember, but it was like, when you're done watching the movie, do you want that time back? Like, do you think I just wasted an hour and a half, 2 hours of my life, or was this like a special moment or whatever? And that moment is called something. And the kid said, your movie, each scene was a moment for me. Like, I didn't want to give that moment back. Like each moment, like sometimes you think of the whole film. He's like, each scene came up and I was like, this is just as special as the next. And he condensed it in a more articulate way. But Sean was like, can we use that as a pull quote for our DVD box? And so, you have lots of those special moments throughout.
Great. No, thank you so much for sharing all that.
Yeah. Well, if any of the kids would like our autographs before we go, just let us know.
You
It's
can
totally
come in,
fine.
Sign all their arms.
Yeah.
No, they
It's
don't
totally
need that.
fine.
No. Thank you.
They were
guys.
excited to have you here. I mean,
No.
to have that
No.
focus.
I was just joking.
No, but it's true. Like, it validates what they're doing, right? When you have attention, we're validating it by listening to them and letting them tell their stories. But when an outside organization comes in, and especially a podcast like yours that's been around for so long and is elevating storytelling in the Bay Area, the two who you brought in, they're like, we were listening to some of the episodes.
Oh God, help
so
us.
I think they're going to be big fans moving
I
forward.
hope so.
Yes.
We need that young demo.
You need the
Yeah,
young demo.
exactly.
The quadrants.
We need
You
the kids. We need the kids. No.
Oh, thank you. This has been a really fun day.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Sky, and I'm 17 and a student at the SFFilm Youth Camp.
Hi, I'm Aisha. I'm 16 and I'm a student at the SFFilm Youth Camp.
Hi, I'm Angela. I will not be giving my age today because I don't want to depress you.
Me neither.
You're so young and impressionable.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we're really excited to be joining you at your youth camp today. But can you both talk about how you first got involved with SFFilm, if this is your first interaction with SFFilm or if you have a past with them? We can start with you, Sky.
Yeah, so I actually heard about the camp through a friend of my mom's, and I was into filmmaking, and I was like, why don't I just go and try it out? I was a little nervous at first because I didn't know really what the experience was going to be like, but it turned out to be such a blast, so inspiring. That was last year, and then I came back this year for the advanced lab.
Yeah, I heard about it. I was doing research online looking for a film camp in the city, and this is what I found. I went here last year, and I had, again, such a great time. I met Sky there, and so, yeah, it was a really great experience. I was on set for the first time using a bunch of the tools, and then after that, I applied for the SFFilm Youth Residency, and I did that for the last year, so that was meeting about twice a month to do workshops and learn about filmmaking, which was like my first ever like intensive like film sort of like class that I've ever taken. And then I decided to come back again this year to get more hands-on experience and reunited with Sky.
Oh,
They're friends.
so are we sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah, most times. I want to ask both of you, what films inspired you to actually want to become a filmmaker? It could be a top 3, it could be one. I know, side note, we talked about Schitt's Creek with Aisha, but can you talk about like when the moment was like, oh yeah, maybe I want to do that and pursue it?
So I think that for me, I love films that have like a nostalgic feeling. My favorite films are all from when I was younger, like Matilda and The Princess Bride. And another thing that actually inspired me to want to become a filmmaker was reading and wanting to see the books that I was reading on the big screen. So stories like All the Different Pieces and Fried Green Tomatoes, like just watching that movie for the first time, I'd read the book maybe like 4 times already. And just seeing that I was like, wow, it can really just like come from the page into like reality, and seeing that happen and made me inspired to want to do it myself. Yeah.
I love Fried Green Tomatoes.
Excellent
It's one of my
references,
favorites.
Aisha.
Yes.
When I was little, I watched the Studio Ghibli movie Spirited Away, and I remember feeling so engaged and like immersed in the world that was created. And I think I always loved storytelling. Like I love to read. I wrote like poetry and short stories when I was little for fun. And I just loved the way that a movie can give you the feels, you know, it can make you really feel things, and then the story can change your perspective in ways you didn't even think possible. I think that's super cool. I think probably the kids' movies that I watched when I was little, I think that's probably what inspired me.
Nice. I love that. So we're nearing the end of, for both of you, your second summer camp with SFFilm. So what have you learned this summer, and how has it changed you as an artist?
For me, I've always like approached film in sort of like a pre-production mindset. I love writing and thinking of all these ideas and shot listing and all of that. But then I get a little bit nervous because I have less experience on set or editing. And I think that this year especially, I've taken like more time to work as like a director or cameraman, whatever, and experience that and get more familiar with it. And I think that that's been really helpful for me, and I've learned a lot through doing that, in putting my ideas, like actualizing them.
Oh man, I love that question. I think I often struggle to actually just do the creative work, and I spend a lot of time thinking about what I could be doing and how I could make it so perfect. And this experience is so fast paced. You know, we have like 2 days to write the screenplay. We shoot for 2 days and then we edit for 3 days. And it really like showed to me like you just gotta go and you gotta do the thing, like write the screenplay, shoot the shot, and put it all together. And the fact that it's done is better than the fact that it's perfect.
Wow. Who are they? I believe they're lying about their ages, first of all. And Sky, you're not the only one. We all sit around and think about what we could be doing. So we're all together in this.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Okay. I don't know. I feel like
we should be taking notes about them. What
you
they're
two
saying.
are bitch talk.
You're our mentors now.
Yes. Yeah. I do want to ask. So you're in a fast-paced camp. You're doing the things. How do you sustain what you learned throughout the year? I know you did the residency, but are you making film while you're in high school and using these things, using the tools that you're learning after this? And what does it look like?
So last year after the camp, I met some people, did some networking, you know. Sky.
That's what you got to do.
Yep. Sky, me, and some other girls from camp last year sort of had made like a group chat, and I branched off with like one other girl and her friend who does film, and we were working together on a lot of films over the last year also, basically just writing, and then we made like one short film together, and just like, getting to know people through this camp has been really helpful in creating our own projects outside of camp. And I also... I'm always meeting new people who are like, yes, I also love film and I can help you with this. And my favorite thing to do is edit. So we can like collab on that. And I love, just like meeting all the people who have all the different interests and can like help me, teach me in the parts that I don't know very well. And I could do the same for them.
Yeah, I mean, I just try to like constantly be like writing down ideas I have, or if a random scene comes into my head, just like quickly storyboarding it. I definitely agree that like being surrounded by other creative people who have skills different than yours but are still really passionate has been really invaluable. I started like a film club with one of my friends who's also into film at school, and we've been making short films or even just like posting on our school Instagram. Like anytime we can find a way to make something, we'll try to jump in and do it.
Yes. Community is everything. And no matter what field you're in, when you have good people around you, you're going to be fine. That's such an important lesson to learn. So before we close, I want to hear about what kind of stories you're excited to tell. Do you want to talk about a film that you're editing now within camp, or something that you have written down, Sky, that you want to make? Like, what kind of stories do you want to tell?
I would love to tell stories that change people's perspectives on the world. Like, I remember I watched a documentary on a homelessness crisis in Oakland, and it was such an interesting way to look at that scenario, like from in a really human way, and like things that really bring out the humanity in all the different stories. I don't know. I really would love to tell stories that illuminate people's lives who are kind of ignored or often like brushed over. I think it's really cool the way that you can broaden your perspective with those types of stories.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think the films that affect me the most are ones with like really big emotions, and I tend to empathize really strongly with the people that I see on screen. And I think being able to do that and being able to make other people have those emotions that you're having when you're writing it, or that the characters are having in something that you wrote, I think that's really powerful. And I think film is one of the few mediums that you can do that. I also do poetry, like spoken word poetry. And I think that listening to other poets speak and say things that I'm like, oh, I've felt that also, makes me feel so seen. And I think film is another really strong way to do so. And yeah.
I wish we had money and we could make a grant and then give it to them.
Yeah.
I want a speech talk scholarship.
At some point.
That's very sweet.
We will do that.
That's very sweet.
Love you guys so much. I'm really excited for your futures. I hope you keep in touch with us. Any works that you have that you want to share with the public, we want to put you on blast. We want to elevate that.
That's so kind. It's been so much fun talking to you guys.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to SFFilm. They were the beginning of my film journey last summer, and they've taken me throughout the whole thing. And I've learned so much. I have no film classes at my school or anywhere else, so this has been such a great resource for me, having it in the city and meeting so many awesome people who can help me with my projects, my age and older, and just getting all these experiences has been amazing. So,
yeah, I'm just now realizing my story is weirdly similar to Aisha's, because my film has my school has no film classes. I don't know many people who are into film in my circle, so this community that is not only passionate about filmmaking, but people who are really successful and making awesome things. It's just really inspiring to see that happen and to see that work. So I'm so grateful to everyone at SFFilm who makes that happen and inspires young artists like us to keep making art.
Hi, I'm Jessica Jones. I'm a Bay Area-based filmmaker and editor. I mostly focus in documentary films. And I am here today because I'm a guest lecturer at the SFFilm Youth Camp. And I'm going to be talking about the editing process. I'm always just generally really impressed with high school students that are editing and really familiar with Premiere. So generally, like, the kids that are in these camps are incredibly enthusiastic filmmakers. So it's really cool to see some of the questions that they are asking. And I think I'm just really here to, like, mostly talk about my own experience, you know? I mean, I've just been doing this for years, and so I just have that on them, basically. But I mean, I think, like, their commitment to this artistic medium and also, like, the exposure at such a young age is really, really cool. And yeah, and so just in the previous years that I've mentored, like, I'm mentoring in another program now, and then I've done something similar with, like, camps. I mean, I'm really just here to, I think, just share some of my own career experience and offer that for them as just, like, nuggets of information that hopefully make some kind of impact on them and, like, what they're thinking about as far as, like, their own film career goes.
So how did you get connected with SFFilm, and what has been your experience with them through the years?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been involved with SFFilm here and there for many years. When I first moved to the Bay, I actually volunteered at the SF Film Festival to try to get connected to the filmmaker community here, and then I've gone to events throughout the years. And then last year in 2024, I became an SF Film House resident with a film that I'm directing called Women Who Ride. And then I think as a part of that, I've had the honor of talking at some of their youth programs, both last year and this year. And I think that they just do really great programming. I mean, in general, the Bay is such a powerhouse, especially for documentaries, and they're one of the key players in that.
As a woman of color in the business, do you bring some of that years of information to the kids, and do they ask flat out about the business and are curious? What are they curious about with you and your experience, I would say?
Yeah, I mean, I think for, like, the high school students that I'm speaking to today, like, they're not quite at the place where they're thinking about, like, financial stability, like, within their careers. But I also am a mentor with a BAVAC program where we are looking at, like, workforce development. And so we do have a lot of conversations around, like, sustainability in the field, what are early stages that you can take as a filmmaker, how to make this career, like, long lasting. And then, I mean, I think as far as, like, being a female of color in this work, I mean, there's just, like, a different place I think that I'm coming from with that background. And I think for me, especially with the kids that are getting a little bit older, like, you know, thinking about college, early post-college, I think just really being open and honest about what privilege looks like, what sustainability looks like in this field, like the difference between being an independent filmmaker and working in corporate work. I mean, I think that in general, our field needs to have a more honest conversation about, like, working through and navigating those spaces, and that you can sort of do both. I mean, something that I tell kind of the folks that are in the mentorship programs that I'm in is, like, you know, there's many different sort of roads that this career can take. And I think a nice thing about it is you can sort of be in many of those spaces, but at the time you sort of have to figure out what is most important for you. And maybe that's like, you know, just really honing in on things that matter to you most story-wise, or maybe it's like you got to pay off your student loan, so you have to make certain decisions around that. So I think like that is the angle that I try to bring, is like being honest about some of my own experiences with that, and seeing sometimes that there is a lack of transparency around that. So as much as I can, I hope that I bring some of that perspective. And then the only other thing I can say is like, you know, just focusing and elevating other stories of people of color is also something that I try to show and demonstrate when I'm, you know, doing something like today with the youth camp. So yeah, just elevating my own community.
So you're here to talk specifically about editing. So I'm curious to know, especially in documentary, but even in narrative film, the story completely changes once you get it in the editing room. So what is advice that you have for the students or for creatives at large about bringing yourself into the editing room?
Yeah, well, I will say, like, I haven't done as much narrative, so most of my focus is in docs, but which for me is really fun, because that truly is, I think, where the story happens. And a lot of the films that I work on are verite, so I'm watching, you know, kind of like people eat breakfast and things like that, which can feel very mundane sometimes, but you find really beautiful moments in that. And I think the thing about editing is to always remember to, like, there's ways to step away from one angle of looking at what you're doing. So, you know, today I'll be talking about like using storyboards when you get stuck, you know, getting out of Premiere, or just listening to the audio, or just watching the visuals, so that you're seeing all of these different ways that a story can play out. And I mean, ultimately the audience will only be hearing like one finished product, but there's so many layers of that you can really think about to enhance the story. And ultimately at the end of the day, like, it's the story that matters most. And so that's what we all have to be committed to as editors.
Is there anything you want to share with our audience? Anything they can watch that you've worked on, or anything to look forward to in the future?
Oh, sure. So right now I'm working on a film that I'm directing called Women Who Ride. So would love support for that film. We're anticipating a release of that next year.
What is it about? Can you give a little?
Oh, sure. So Women Who Ride is about the president and founder. Her name is Tish Edwards, of Oakland's first all-female Black motorcycle club, and her journey to keep the club alive while being a caretaker for those around her.
Powerful.
Thank you for having me and supporting programs like this. I mean, we're really in a place right now where arts programming is like being attacked. And so I think like these programs are so valuable. I mean, I think especially for being in high school, like no matter where these kids go or what they become, I think being able to understand how to tell your own narrative, how to have the confidence to present that to like a wide group of people. These programs are so important for kids. And I think, and arts generally is such an amazing avenue to like process emotions. It's really a shame for me that I think we're losing so much funding, that people just like aren't seeing the value in it right now. So, or, well, not everyone, but yes, like
we do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, you know, getting behind kind of, if you support the arts, like now is the time to speak up about it.
Thanks for joining us on today's show. You can find more information about this episode in our show notes.
If you're missing us, you can visit us at bitchtalkpodcast.com to sign up for our newsletter and buy us a cup of coffee.
Did you know we're also on the radio? You can find us at bff.fm.
And lastly, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All the cool bitches are doing it.